Have you ever been in a game and felt that sudden urge to turn around? Sometimes you'll just be casually playing when suddenly something happens that makes you feel like someone is watching you. That unsettling feeling usually happens on accident. Most video games don't try to make you feel like you're being watched. But what about games that do? Games that want you to know that someone is watching. This video talks about 3 such games. I scoured the internet for weeks and played several horror games in the process. And in my search, I found 3 games that are more dreadful, more terrifying than any game I've ever played before. And yet there's not a single jump scare in any of them. They just make you feel paranoid, like someone is always behind you. How and why are these games so terrifying? And how did most of them make me feel like I was being watched in real life? All I can say is that the first game, IMSCARED, made me feel unsafe even after closing it. The game acts like a virus on your computer. It'll manipulate files, create folders on your desktop, and forcefully link you to strange videos. It's hard to know where to start when talking about IMSCARED. Sure, I could describe it as it is, a meta 3D pixelated horror game where your objective is to find keys to doors in a long, dark hallway. I could describe it as many others do, as a game that manipulates files on your computer, crashes itself constantly, or takes you to random unlisted YouTube links. But at its core, IMSCARED is a game about being watched. The concept of the fourth wall break is prevalent in all sorts of media, and why it can be terrifying has already been discussed at length. Basically, when you play a game, or watch a movie, or consume any form of media, there's always a disconnect between you and what you're consuming. I'm watching or playing a story, I'm not actively participating in it, just a neutral observer watching things unfold, or controlling my character when there's already a story at hand. But when that breaks down, when the metaphorical fourth wall collapses, we feel seen. We suddenly feel thrust into what we're consuming without our permission. You aren't supposed to know I'm here, so why are you looking at me? IMSCARED does this exact thing. The game starts at the exit, one that can be opened with a pulsating heart. After opening a door to this fleshy room and picking up the heart, this happens. Admittedly, the fake blue screen is a little on the nose and obvious, but I think that was intentional. One of the claims to fame for IMSCARED is its fourth wall breaks and virus-like nature. It would be pretty hard for someone to play this game without already getting wind that it does something to your computer. The jump scare followed by a fake blue screen is obviously cheesy, and the uninformed may be thinking, that's it? This moment allows IMSCARED to trick you into underestimating it. And as the game plays out, you'll notice that underestimating it is a sore mistake. It's after this blue screen that a text file appears on your computer called attention. This is the most important part of it. There's a way to turn an entity into data. They have a life of their own, and it's difficult to distinguish them from normal computer files. In our actions of every day, while we sit at the computer, this byte entity observes us and studies our every move and fear. The entity, that we'll later know as Whiteface, is already inside your computer, already watching you. The fact that this information is communicated via text file further cements that fourth wall break, that feeling of being seen in more ways than one. Both by virtue of the game creating a file on your computer without your permission, and by the warning that something is watching you deep in your computer files. While fourth wall breaks in media can make us feel uneasy, the power is still in the hands of the viewer. No matter how many times Flowey tells me that my actions are remembered in Undertale, I still have the power to shut down the game, turn off the movie, to close the book. The type of fourth wall break IMSCARED delivers in its opening challenges even that modicum of safety that the player retains. Go ahead, close the game. Whiteface is still watching you somewhere on your computer. It's by virtue of this file that you feel almost obligated to continue playing. The goal now is external to the game, to get Whiteface out of your computer. So no matter how uncomfortable the fourth wall breaks get, leaving the game would be a grave mistake. This setup confronts you with another typically ignored aspect of horror games: why we play them. A game can be as scary as it wants, but if you're playing a horror game, you're likely there to get scared in the first place. Maybe you went into IMSCARED with that thought originally, but now a small part of you is playing out of paranoia, out of fear of closing the game and letting Whiteface hide deeper in your computer. But it's hard to talk about all of these things without also looking at the game itself. Like I said earlier, the game revolves around finding keys to unlock doors in this dark hallway. Though you're almost never here, usually chasing leads and clues in other parts of the game. It's in these other parts where you meet the monster haunting your computer, Whiteface. This is where I'm Scared distinguishes itself even further from other horror games in its genre. It all has to do with the fact that Whiteface doesn't attack the player. It just observes the player. And it becomes clear very quickly that Whiteface is not malicious towards you. It's obsessed with you. The only time you'll see Whiteface is when he's stalking you from the shadows, watching you from a window, in the darkness of a cell, or running straight past you in a garden. In the one section where Whiteface actually chases you, it's clear that he's not trying to attack you. This section starts with the words, "Let's play tag," written on the walls. Whiteface chases you through a parking garage while you follow arrows on the ground. And even when it catches you, there is no jump scare or any indication that it did anything to you. The game just crashes, with a playful new text file appearing named "Got You." Whiteface is trying to spend time with you, chasing you for its own enjoyment. It's less of a jump scare and more of a, "This is fun, try again." As the game continues, that feeling that Whiteface is always watching you gets bolstered even more. After the first fake ending of the game, I was put into the room where the title page was set in. As I walked, I began to notice a strange pattern in the pictures framed on the walls. They're all photos taken from places I caught Whiteface watching me from, behind the bars while being chased. But then there's this photo. I don't remember it being in this room with me. Was it there the whole time? Where else could it have been watching me from? Is it watching me right now? Whiteface is obsessed with watching you. It even says that it loves it. At one point you're taken to its room. It reveals that it's cold and dark there, but it can still look at you. Watching you is the only enjoyment it can ever have. Whiteface doesn't want you to complete the game because if you do, it knows you're just going to close it forever. It tries everything in its power to keep you here. Near the real ending, after you get all the valves, a door opens, one that will take you to the finale. But instead of taking you straight there, you have to get every in-game achievement. As annoying as this seems, I did like this part of the game. It's one more desperate way for Whiteface to make you spend more time with it, making you go back and relive everything it put you through, now fully aware it's always watching. Once you do make it though, you have a choice. You can leave the game forever, ensuring Whiteface will never haunt you again, or you can choose to stay with it, pick up the flower, and spare Whiteface. This will reset the game and all of its achievements, meaning you have to play the game again, and again, and again. You haven't deleted Whiteface. He'll remain as data on your computer, watching you forever, just like it wanted to. Then there's the other ending, the one where you leave Whiteface here. Contrary to what seems obvious, the title of the game, I'm Scared, is not meant to be a reaction by the player while playing the game. It's a statement from Whiteface. When you walk through the door, you're greeted with a black and white version of the starting area. When you try to go down the hallway, Whiteface appears with probably the most disturbing audio of the entire game, a distorted version of someone screaming in pain. Whiteface is in agony. "I don't want you to kill me. I will look at you forever. I don't want to die. I'm scared." It attacks you and the game crashes again. Whiteface keeps attacking you when you try to open it. It insults you, it cries, it kicks and screams, wishes death upon you for not letting it watch you forever. After you boot up the game enough times, Whiteface's heart will appear in front of you, alongside one last text file. I suppose you're satisfied. I'm scared. I'm scared at the point I cannot hide my heart anymore. Destroy this file, move it, change its name. The game will end, and so will my curse. Leave me here, I beg you. I want to stay here with you just a little more. One last cry for help. It's sad. Whiteface isn't acting out of revenge or hunger, but out of self-preservation, out of a childish urge to keep playing with its toys. But even in Whiteface's last words, it begs you to keep it here. Let it enjoy watching you just a little longer. If you delete its heart from the game files, the game ceases to be a game. The environments are lit up. Nobody's watching you anymore. Are you happy? It's gone now. Ironically, this section where you're alone in a lit up version of the map is scarier than when you knew you were being watched. Nobody's here. There's no game anymore, and yet you're still here. Maybe you were the one who was truly obsessed. I've never had a game make me feel so bad for what I did to the monster. Whiteface watched you because it loved you, because it couldn't take its eyes off of you, because you playing the game allowed it to exist. What you're left with when Whiteface is deleted is a ghost. A husk that feels almost more haunted than when it was inhabited. That's not to say that all monsters that watch you are misunderstood. The feeling of being watched is inherently one that makes people uneasy. The game Paratopic is one of the most dreadful and unsettling I've ever played. To call Paratopic a psychological horror game is an understatement, because it replicates that feeling of being watched in real life almost too well. It's hard to know where to start with Paratopic. I guess I'll start with how it made me feel. Have you ever been walking somewhere alone at night and just had the sudden urge to turn around? Or been on a late night drive alone, slightly tired, not a car on the road, and suddenly felt like you were being followed? That's what this 40-minute game made me feel. Now I'll go for a more mechanical introduction, so we all have the same baseline when talking about this thing. Paratopic is a non-linear, psychological horror game in which you play as 3 different people whose lives intersect in strange ways. A smuggler, someone who has to take tapes across an unspecified border, tapes that seem to mangle people's flesh when viewed. An assassin, sent to kill a leader inside this tape trade, and a birdwatcher, who finds the ruins of illicit industry while going on a walk through a forest. The game never tells you who you're playing as. In any given scene, it's up to clues and sometimes interpretation to guess which character you are. There are 15 scenes in the entire game, and I mean scenes in the literal sense of the word. Paratopic doesn't like to stay in one moment forever, cutting at random intervals to different characters or different situations. This also ties into one of the other important things about Paratopic, the title itself. A paratopic space is defined as a place that exists in between the story or beyond it. Paratopic spaces are parts of a story that need to happen, but don't matter. The events of The Shining never occur without the mundane drive to the Overlook Hotel. Paratopic spaces are what's between the important parts of a story. This principle is what the game is heavily based on. This will be important later. You start Paratopic at the end of the smuggler's journey, getting caught by Border Patrol. The guy keeping watch wants to look at your tapes. You warn him not to, but he goes anyways. We see a flicker of light. You look out onto a blank, flavorless street with a crow picking at a corpse on the side of the road. You get a phone call. Seconds later, you're loading a gun. The smuggler gets his first assignment in the same diner, to get a set of tapes across the border. It looks like you've done this before. The assassin kicks open a door and holds a man at gunpoint. Title. The smuggler calls the elevator and waits. And waits. And waits. The elevator comes down painfully slow. You go to your apartment. Your neighbor mentions some people breaking in. They left tapes. Your nosy neighbor asks for one. If you give it to her, this happens. You're on the road. It's at this point where it's hard to guess who exactly you're playing as. You may initially assume you're still playing as the smuggler, and you'd be right. If you look next to you, you'll see the box of tapes sitting there. But you're also playing as the assassin and the birdwatcher. In fact, you're playing as all 3 and none at the same time. If you look away for a while and look again, you'll see the assassin's gun. Do it once more and you'll see nothing. The driving sections make up a good chunk of the game, so I'll sum up what my interpretation of this is. All 3 of the characters we play as need to go somewhere. And because the experience of driving down a highway is so universal, so similar to everyone else's experience of driving down a highway, the game doesn't make a distinction. You could be the smuggler, or you could be the assassin, or the birdwatcher. Does it really matter? The road would look the same no matter who you were playing as. You're everyone and no one, because Paratopic cares more about the act of driving than the character doing it. This driving section lasts over 3 minutes. Driving through an endless, sickly green city covered in unimaginative architecture, the kind that never reveals its purpose until you're already trapped inside its endless halls. When suddenly, you're in a gas station in the dead of night. It's hard to tell who you're playing as here, but it's either the assassin or smuggler most likely. It doesn't matter either way. Something is watching you. The gas station attendant makes small talk with you, tells you that he believes in aliens. He apparently saw one. At least he thinks he saw one. All he knows is that it wasn't human. And is your friend done fueling up? He asks. You look out the window. You drove here alone. So who did he see? In most horror games, this would be the setup for a scare, a relief of all the tension building from your conversation with the attendant, the supernatural happenings, the non-humans, the thing watching you from your car. But instead of making you go back to your car to find out what the attendant saw, the game just... You're on an empty stretch of road in the dead of night. You open a box and pull out a camera. The world turns bright. This is the first time we play as the Birdwatcher. If Paratopic didn't follow the mundane in-betweens of the story at hand, we may have gone to investigate whatever the attendant saw outside, but we don't get that relief. We never see what's watching us from the car, or the non-human the attendant claimed to have seen. We're just cast into the next scene, like nothing happened. But of course something did happen. This mystery is now overstaying its welcome in the back of your mind. What was this guy talking about? Who was watching me? What aliens? Where am I now? And it's with these questions that you're forced to explore a patch of woods on a desolate strip of road, alone. Or are you? You go into the woods already feeling watched, feeling like that built-up tension in the gas station has to be relieved at any moment now. You just don't know when. You find a small building in the woods. The basement is locked, but if you walk away, you hear it being opened on its own. You descend into this underworld. The sound and mood completely changes. The colors shift to a familiar sickly green. The music stops and is replaced by occasional noises. You're on your own now. This, I thought, this would be the place where a jump scare would happen. I would walk into this facility and be chased through the halls by some monster or creature. Surely that's the relief I've been waiting for. So you walk. And walk. Slowly but surely, ready at any moment to turn around and run the other way. And you keep walking. And keep walking. Are you really alone here? I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. There was no way I was alone. How could I be? The excellent sound design of this room is a big contributor to my feelings. Unnerving ambience plays. It pops up at random moments, making you turn around only to find nothing there. Ambience that indicates some kind of pending action, like a precursor to an intense track played over some kind of chase scene. But that intense track never comes. I ran out of that basement even though nothing was chasing me. At least, I hoped nothing was chasing me. And I was back in that wide forest, more tense than ever before. Continuing to walk after this was dreadful. I found myself jumping at every noise. Metallic groaning of a rusty windmill made me turn around in a panic. The crowing of birds made me jump. This section makes me feel watched in ways I've never felt before in a game. The Birdwatcher section doesn't ever reveal a threat to you visually. Most horror games, when they want to make you feel like you're being watched, add just a snippet of a threat. A quick glance into the eyes of a beast that quickly vanishes, hearing a noise that obviously wasn't natural. Paratopic does none of these things, yet makes me feel more in someone's crosshairs than in any game I've ever played. The sound design, the atmosphere, the building tension, you can't see anything, but you just know you're not alone. It's a lot more like the feeling of being watched in real life. Often when you get the feeling something is behind you and turn around, it's not because something popped into your view for a split second, but more likely a product of your environment. The perfect combination of the silence and the place you're in makes you feel seen, makes you feel like you're being watched. Paratopic mimics this exact dread of feeling observed in real life, a perfect mixture of building unnerve and being in a place where something could be hiding anywhere. That's why it's so effective. I wouldn't say it's too quiet, but it's definitely something like that. You continue walking down the slopes of a cliff, still mentally pending something to happen, when suddenly, back in the car. You're out of the city now, and the sky is getting darker. Still not a car on the road. Still could be anybody. A road is anonymous, and the darkness only shields you from identification even more. 3 more minutes of driving passes. Quiet. You're back as the Birdwatcher. This time the tall redwoods have been replaced by shipping containers. You're on a railroad track, and a brutalist monolith rests in the distance. This time you're being watched without a doubt. Cameras are following you. The sound design has gotten more hostile. You're in a place you're clearly not supposed to be. You continue towards this flavorless structure, and you see something in the distance. It looks vaguely humanoid. You try to point your camera at it, but it doesn't work. You walk closer to it. It disappears in front of your eyes. You stand there perplexed, when suddenly, you're back driving. The structures have gotten hostile, the remains of toppled industry begging for its life on the side of the highway. It's completely dark. Nobody on the road. Anonymous. Back at the gas station once again, still unclear who we're playing as. The attendant asks once again, "Who are you traveling with?" You look out the window. Someone is standing by your car. The same thing that the Birdwatcher saw in the woods. You say you're on your own. It doesn't stop looking at you for the remainder of your conversation. Always watching. You kick the door down and hold the bastard inside at gunpoint. Remember this from the beginning? Without a moment's hesitation, you blow his head off. But then the fast-paced music stops. The rush of being put into such an intense situation after all that driving and walking and listening dissipates the moment you pull the trigger. Why did you do that? The game almost judges you for this. Why did you shoot this person with no context and no reason? You play a tape on the desk, and no, seriously, why did you do that? The tapes replay the moment right after you kill him. Not the rush of excitement as you kick in the door or the satisfying shot, just the moment directly after. You're being watched, not by a monster anymore, but by your future self, who's forced to replay their past self killing a man for no reason. Until one of the tapes, finally, mercifully, doesn't take you back and you can escape from this shit. You're back to where the smuggler was taken after being caught by Border Patrol. The man who watched the tapes walks out of the room, a TV on his head. He walks towards you, and he just withers. You're left alone in the dark hallway with the TV on the ground for an uncomfortably long amount of time. You're back to the ruins where the Birdwatcher was found, this time playing as the assassin. You walk over to the site and this time see a mangled, skinless corpse propped up by a pole. What could that thing have done to her? You look around, expecting to be next, but that doesn't happen. You call the police. In the game, well... When Paratopic ended, I felt exactly the same way I felt the first time I was told I was being watched. That build up to some climax, some kind of scare or strange happening was bound to show up. This couldn't be the end. Is this the end? Wait a second, explain yourself. Don't leave me like this. It's an unsatisfying ending. What were the tapes? What is that creature? What are these ruins? These questions are purposely left unanswered because at its core, Paratopic isn't a game that answers questions. Remember the title of the game, Paratopic, the space in between the important parts of a story? Well, that's exactly what we're seeing. How could you expect anything to come from that? Why would a hallway explain the room at its end? This scene perfectly captures the entire game's design philosophy. Why explain the thing looking at you from your car? Why explain the opening of the basement door? Why explain the tension you feel when you can just let it fester? Let it make grooves in your mind. What's the point in getting to the resolution when the path there, cleared of all context, is much more terrifying? The creature watching you in Paratopic is your own mind. The degree to which you have this feeling is completely up to how many details you notice and can't get out of your head. And if we're talking about games where the mind watches you, where the brain is free to paint its surroundings with dread, then why don't we talk about most people's first introduction to the feeling of being watched? The dark house. I'm sure as kids we've all hidden under the covers, heard a noise, watched a scary movie, or just imagined something terrifying and dove under the safety of our blankets. This is probably one of the earliest examples the average person can think of feeling watched. You would hide every movement to make it look like you weren't there for some unknown observer whose existence you could never prove, even if you're brave enough to look around your dark room. I call the game Anatomy one of the scariest I've ever played because I've never had a piece of media so accurately reflect this childhood fear. Anatomy is a game that made me feel watched for days after playing, that made me feel like I wasn't safe in my own home for a while, not because of a monster, but the walls themselves. The game is simple. You collect tapes in a dark house and play them on a tape recorder on the kitchen table. The tapes are the main focus of the game. Their contents slowly warp the house, not in a physical way, but through your own perception. The bulk of the tapes in Anatomy dissect a house as if it were a human. The living room is the heart, pumping people and activity through the rest of the house. The kitchen is the digestive system, the staircase the spine, and the bedroom a brain. The feeling of being watched when you begin Anatomy is distinctly different from when you finish Anatomy, and the first part of the game's terror comes from a similar source to Paratopic's. The indication, but not the proof. Of course, Anatomy in many respects excels in this feeling just as Paratopic does. Anatomy's atmosphere is imposing, dreadful, and in many ways nostalgic. You're given a sprint key, one that makes you run much faster than clearly your small environment can ever fully allow. I initially thought that because I could sprint, and at such fast speeds, I would surely have to run from something. The culmination of all these factors, the atmosphere, the sprint key, the cryptic recordings, made me feel like I wasn't alone. It made me feel like something utterly terrifying would reveal itself to me at any moment. When that doesn't happen, when the house is silent, all that's left is paranoia. I could easily end this section here. I've explained Anatomy's horror in much the same way I did Paratopic's. If you leave now, you may come away with the idea that anatomy and Paratopic will scare you in similar ways. But then you get to the second part of anatomy, the horror that made me feel vulnerable in my own home for days. Unlike Paratopic, anatomy fully answers the question of what is watching me. And the answer is an uneasy one that goes far beyond the game. The tapes in anatomy give you descriptions about how human-like a house is and how it relates to bodily functions, about what a home thinks and feels, about how a home can see. Anatomy asks the question, can a house, by its very nature, be considered alive? And the uncomfortable answer to that question is yes. A house can consume matter by taking in energy in the form of groceries and food feeding its inhabitants. Those inhabitants, acting like cells, keep it alive by maintaining its walls and appliances, excrete in the form of trash, take in oxygen through windows or air conditioners, grow from a base to a final self, reproduce by providing humanity with comfort and a sense of place that then inspires them to make more homes, and respond to external stimuli, like when hurricane shutters are put up in response to a coming storm. A house can also become diseased through black mold and other vulnerabilities, and it can die. If a house can possess these qualities, if it can match every definition of a living thing we have in some form, then can it feel emotion? If so, what does an abandoned house feel? What happens when a house is left alone? When it becomes worn and aged and its paint peeled?
And its foundations begin to sink. And it goes for too long unlived in. What does it think of? What does it dream? How does it regard those creatures who built it, brought it into existence only to abandon it, when its usefulness no longer satisfies them? It may grow lonesome. It may grow angry. Its basement may fill with churning acid like an empty stomach, and its gorge may rise as it asks itself through clenched teeth, what did I do wrong?
If a house can be angry, if it can have emotions, if it can hate humanity, what can it do about it? Nothing. It has no legs, it can't move. The only thing a house can do in response is watch. In this way, the windows of a house serve
much the same purpose as eyes, and anyone who has ever rounded a bend or long drive and come suddenly face to face with a tall, dark manor will tell you that it is difficult to shake the impression that the house, through its lightless windows, is a creature capable of vision and intelligence.
The house in anatomy watches you. It watches you walking through its hallways, watches you exploring its crevices, watching you pick at it after you abandoned it so long ago. Unlike Whiteface, who watches you out of obsession, the house in anatomy watches you out of hate. And if a house, teeming with hatred, can do nothing but watch, what does it mean for the player? What does it mean to close the game and still be in a home? When I finished playing anatomy, I was still in a dark house alone. Walking around this now foreign place was anguish. I walked down the stairs, I think the spine. I walked to the kitchen, the stomach. I tuck myself into bed, the mouth. I look out the window, and it stares back. Why did we hide under the covers as children? Maybe it was to ward off monsters made so real by our minds that we felt their eyes on us. Or maybe it's because for as much as a house can betray us at any moment, we trust it unconditionally with our lives. Trust that while we remain unconscious, while we lie asleep for hours without senses, that it won't turn on us. It's here in the bedroom that we're at our most vulnerable. Each night we shut our senses
to the world for hours at a time, trusting in the house to keep us safe until next we wake. In this state of extreme vulnerability, we will spend something like 20% of our lives. Anything might stand beside us, watch us, keep us company until dawn, and we would never perceive it. We can only pray that the house will not let such things carry on as we sleep. In this way, during these hours, the bedroom seems less like a mind and more like a mouth. For it is here that the house is most likely to betray us. It is here that we place ourselves most at the house's mercy and spend each night hoping that it will not bite down.
Anatomy makes you feel stupid for trusting your own home, for trusting that just because you live inside another organism that it won't betray you. And a house doesn't always keep its inhabitants safe. Quite often do we hear stories about burglaries, storm damage, fires, people secretly living in other people's homes. Why do you feel safe in your own home? If you really try to answer that question, you'll find that any answer is built on flawed logic. Because in reality, a house is just wood, brick, concrete, and steel, and yet we trust this organism to protect us because what else can we do? After playing Anatomy, I didn't want to go to sleep, because I knew that my presence was being observed by the very place I rested my head in every night. All I could do was hope that it wouldn't betray me. In many ways, the unsettling nature of being watched is akin to the fear of the unknown. Can you prove you're not being watched? Sure, plenty of fears are unable to be proven false, but there's something about the simplicity of being watched that makes it feel more plausible. It's why the statement, "Can you prove you're not being watched right now?" holds more weight than, "Can you prove there's not someone about to kill you from behind?" Are you being watched right now? Maybe. Maybe some entity is watching you through your screen. It's possible that when you go out on a hike or on a long drive, you're being followed. Maybe through its curtained windows, your very home is staring into your soul. The feeling of being watched is a fear response that dates back to our early ancestors, and their ability to tell when danger was nearby. It held when we were children hiding under our covers, and it can still be felt when we hear the digital rustle of a bush in a video game. The monster that makes itself known is one that I can handle. The monster that stays in the shadows, that doesn't allow even an ounce of apathy as it stalks you. Well, that's the one that sticks in my mind. You never truly know when you're being watched. So take a glance around wherever you're watching this. If this video gets a couple 100,000 views, it's statistically sound to say that at least one of you hearing my voice right now is being watched without your knowledge. Could it be you, James?